Blessings and welcome to another episode of Black Mental Health Matters. Our mission here is to encourage open dialogue around mental health in Black communities and across the diaspora. We truly appreciate you being tuned in with wherever you're joining from and whatever time zone you are in. I am your host, Steph Jones, also known as Lalette Calandra. I'm the founder of Counseling Collective, and I'm a therapist and mindfulness life coach. Today, we will be discussing the important topic of healing our minds, empowering our communities. Back with our panel of experts. They're amazing experts. We'll be back to unpack what we're going to be talking about, our important topic. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. I am your host, Steph Jones, also known as Lalette Calandra, and you are joining us for Black Mental Health Matters. I'm going to bring up the expert panel, and we are going to jump into the topic of healing our minds, empowering our communities. Welcome our panelists. Here we go. Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
Can everyone hear me okay?
We hear you.
Yes, I can hear you, but for
Fantastic. Okay, fantastic. I would love every panelist to introduce themselves, please. Let the viewers know who you are, and then we'll jump right into our first couple of questions. I'm just going to start with who I see first on my screen. Dr. Krista, I see you first. Please go right ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Krista Edwards. I am a practicing school psychologist, and I'm also the co-founder of the Black School Psychologists Network Incorporated. And I'm really happy to be here this morning.
Awesome. Dr. J?
Yes, I am Dr. Jay Kurvali. I'm a family practice provider and a functional medicine provider as well. I'm currently practicing here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Awesome. Thank you. And Dr. Cloud?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Cloud. I am a supervisor in foster care. I oversee 13 to 17 and a half. I'm also a professor at about 4 different universities teaching in the BSW program. I'm kind of preparing the next generation of social workers. And I also do private practice on the side.
On the side, I'm all for the side hustles. This is what we have to do.
On the side.
Perfect. Wonderful. Love the side hustle. Perfect. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. So happy and honored to have you all here. You're experts in your field. Let's just jump into it. This is an open conversation. Anyone, who wants to answer, please feel free. Let's start with our first question. What barriers prevent our community from accessing healthcare and mental health support? What are some of those barriers that we see? And I want to preface it. I believe when we find a solution, you have to talk about the issue first. You have to talk about what's going on first, and then we work our way to the solution. So what barriers have you all seen in your fields and in your personal lives that would prevent our community from accessing what we need to access? Anybody?
I believe there's a lot of stigma around mental health that if you have a problem with mental health, it's totally different from people that have diabetes, high blood pressure, because they see it as a weak soul, as someone that doesn't know how to cope or have the capacity to even be human. So it makes it much harder in our community for people to express themselves, because then you are stigmatized as being crazy but not normal, when it shouldn't be. So that's what I think.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Cloud, I think you were about to say something. I can go after you.
No, go for it.
Okay. Um, just to extend on what Dr. J was saying, I think about, so I work in the K-12 sector, and I also teach graduate students as well. But one thing that I have found, many times when I'm working, even with the students who might be experiencing challenges, is sometimes their parents have written off their experiences as them being maybe too
Mm.
young, or, maybe you just need to stop doing this or that. And the reality is sometimes these kids are having real mental challenges. And so I think, again, just not taking, you know, taking our youth serious, but then that comes from also maybe those parents who are taken serious by their parents, right? We see that generational expectation that we're really that contributes to the stigma of, you just can push through, you're fine, you're not crazy, or you are crazy and you need to go get some different type of help. I think that is a major thing that I see in the schools for sure.
Without a
And
doubt.
And I'm going to agree with Dr. J and Dr. Edwards. And the reason I'm agreeing with both of you is that stigma is one of the biggest things that we always see, the biggest barrier. But I also think that we have to look at the stereotypes that come along with mental health. And so a lot of people always say that, especially when it comes to Black men, a lot of my work is with Black men. And so when we look at mental health with Black men, we always stereotype it as Black men cannot have mental health issues. It's okay. Black women can have mental health issues because they're women, they're stronger, they've had to carry, so much on their back. So women are more inclined to get the services or the treatment that they need, or to have these, when we talk about postpartum, because, she's carried a baby, so of course she's going to have postpartum. But a man cannot have mental health issues. And I think that's another barrier that we have to look at, is that we often cast out Black men in our community, that you cannot have a mental health issue. You're not allowed to. That's just what we're telling them. You can't cry, you can't be weak. Like, you are not allowed to have this. And that's that stigma and that stereotype. Like, and I see it often when I do therapy with Black men. I see it often where they're guarded because they've been told so much of their life that as being, we can't cry, we can't show weakness. So why are we getting mental health services, right?
Mhm.
Why are you here? Because you should be out, doing for your family. Men don't cry or boys don't cry, which is one of the things I
Yeah.
really was hearing. And so it leads into the barrier of hurt men, or hurt men, hurt people.
Mm.
And especially if we look at what's going on in the news today, when we seeing so many women of color being killed by their male partners who are men of color, a lot of it's mental health issues. And it goes back or perpetuates back into that stereotype of man cannot have mental health issues. So why do we need to treat them, right? Or why do we need to encourage them to get mental health services?
Yeah.
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 I think
That's so good.
it makes me think about even where that trope is rooted in, right? And that trope is rooted a lot. I mean, if the reality is, and we date all the way back and probably prior, but colonialism, enslavement, this is all what contributed to, breaking down the Black family and that toxic masculinity piece, and the strong Black woman piece that has generationally impacted who we are today. And I think part of that also looks like educating our clients, our children, where this originated from. I remember seeing a video by Dr. Joy DeGruy about post-traumatic slave syndrome, and she was talking about how, and I'll say some, right, how some Black moms in particular struggle with affirming their children. And I'll speak from experience. I know, like, that's definitely something I've struggled with my parents, and I felt that I have needed to do and impress and impress and impress. But what she actually, when she actually broke it down, she gave an example of a Black parent, a Black mom and a white mom being at a park, and a white mom complimenting the Black mother's child and saying, oh, your child is so, well behaved, et cetera, just, speaking positively about the child. And the mom said, oh, yeah, he is. But, he can be a handful sometimes. But, it always wasn't this way. So really diminishing that positive, that affirmation piece. And so what she ties that to is during enslavement, when, our Black children were seen as, useful, or they were growing up to be, these great folks, and they had all these great qualities, et cetera. They were at risk of actually being sold off to another plantation, or that mother was at risk of also losing her child, right? So when we think generationally, it makes a lot of sense where, we keep we know what we think about our babies, but we're not going to tell them, and we're definitely not going to make sure others maybe can share in what we know as well. And so, again, just speaking to that intergenerational piece that we still hold today,
Basically,
and without knowing where it came from, we can't really change where we're going.
It's basically like trying to not brag about them to the point that they've been taken away. But I think also when you talk about the endearment of survival mode being that time, to the point that you're in survival mode so much that everything that is painful, that is hard, is normal, and you should accept it. And I think that has embedded in us to the point that whether it's a woman or it's a man, you can see even from our work culture, like it's easy for the Caucasian to say, hey, I need a mental health day. I need to see a counselor. I need to see a therapist. But as a Black woman or even a man, you were taught to push through it, to show that you are strong, you have the strength to be there, to survive, to hold on, to do your best, even if you know you can't, which I encounter a lot with some of my colleagues or even patients that I deal with every day, that I said, it's okay to take a break. Even when the therapists say you should take a vacation, you can see how, oh no, I can't do that. I have to go to work. I have to put in the time. I have to prove that I'm worthy of this, when it has nothing to do with your worthiness. It has everything to do with your capacity to even function, which I think it goes back to, as Dr. Christie said, to slavery days, and Dr. Cloud spoke of it very well, that what we learn from our parents and our ancestors, it's hard to break that tie, because who do we learn from? Our parents. Who did they learn from? From their parents. And it's that same generational cycle that continues on. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation to try to break away. And it doesn't matter whether you're from Africa or from African American, it's equally the same. And sometimes even worse for the diaspora kids, because as an African parent, we were taught to be in a survival mode. We were taught to not even say no. We were taught to just say yes to everything that we experience. But then now I'm seeing a lot of fourth generation diaspora kids that are having a tough time between dealing with the African parent and dealing with the diaspora issues, because the African parent has no idea about mental health. Who are you? You're a child. Why do you have to worry about, you should not be depressed. You don't have to worry about feeding the family. You don't have to worry about rent. You have too much time in your hands. That's why you're depressed. Only lazy people are depressed. So that goes to the point where the kid doesn't even want to express depression, even want to talk about depression, because the parent don't even accept it as something to exist within the kid's mind. So that I think that makes it.
It's so true. And you guys have all listed some great barriers. And the way I'm seeing it, it's like, you're trying to take a few steps forward. Let's say we're on a journey, we're on a path. You're trying to take a few steps forward, and every barrier adds 30 pounds to your legs, right? Every barrier listed. So you're trying to go forward, you're trying to move forward. And when you don't acknowledge the barriers, then it's even harder to go forward. When we're saying, what you guys have said is amazing. What we're saying is this is intergenerational, past generational, all these things are passed down. And the barriers have now been our inheritance. A lot of people didn't get inheritance or, heirlooms from their family, but what we got was the trauma. And what we got was barriers. And so important for us to talk about these two, say, okay, how do we navigate and move forward so that the next generation come up, we start taking some of this weight off of them, right? We've endured a lot, we've experienced a lot. And I like that it's also been said that it's across the diaspora. It's not just somewhere that's happening on the continent. It's not just somewhere that's happening in America or Mexico or Brazil, wherever Black people are, it is happening. Let's not be confused about that at all. Wherever we are, it is occurring. And so that unites us. And if we can be united in trauma, we can also unite it in that healing, right? Where we say, let's take the turn and move on. So thank you for giving those barriers. And that just barely skims the surface. There are so many barriers. We'd be on here all month talking about barriers. Okay. Those are just a few, right? It's good that we just give people a few. And for those who are watching, please put some barriers that you've seen in the comment section, right? We want to hear your voice. This is interactive. So again, thank you for sharing those barriers. And speaking of barriers, I want to talk about a few specifically, right? We covered a few, but how do the barriers of poverty, unemployment, and inequality impact our mental wellness? And I want to say this, Dr. Cloud, you brought up what was occurring. A few of you brought up what was occurring. We see the domestic violence, fatalities that have been occurring. And it's not making an excuse for anyone. We do have to look at the facts. We do have to, we've all been dealt though, right? And so poverty, unemployment, and inequality really takes a big chunk out of that. So how do those specific barriers that you've seen in your practice, again, personally, professionally, how do those things impact us receiving mental wellness? We're talking about the stigma. We're talking about people not wanting to do it. You're young to be depressed. You're too young to have any mental illness. How do those things really impact our communities?
Give me that question one more time.
Yeah, how does poverty, so we talked about barriers, now these specific ones, right? How does poverty, unemployment, and inequality now impact the mental wellness in our community?
So I would say when it comes to those areas, first of all, if you don't got no money, people always say money. The quote is always that money can buy happiness. That's a lie.
I want to see.
Money can buy some happiness, and the reason I say that and is because when you look at people who are unable to afford things, and let's look at and I hate using this trope, but let's look at the single Black mother, right, who's living paycheck to paycheck, trying to survive, trying to care for her kids, trying to take care of a household, and it's just her. She gets some money. Her whole demeanor change because she's able to do more for her kids, right? She's able to give them the things that they wanted or the things that they asked for that she had to say no to before. And the reason I'm using that example is because so often we don't understand that these types like poverty, unemployment are huge mental health components. Because if you don't have a job, then you cannot pay for the basic necessities that you need to live daily. Like you can't pay for, you got to worry about rent. You got to worry about how I'm going to put food in my kids or put food in my mouth or my kids' mouth. You have to worry about how I'm going to wash clothes, and you start worrying about all these things, and it can lead to a depression. It can lead to depression. It can lead to you breaking down. And I think a lot of us who are blessed or who have the opportunity to have some form of employment, we don't know because even though some of us may be living paycheck to paycheck or we may be living well enough that we have went through these struggles, we don't know that we are also one paycheck. I always tell people we are 1 to 2 paychecks removed from being on the street. I always tell people that because at any moment, anything can happen to us. And even if we have a nest egg in this economy, we are 1 or 2 paychecks away. And so it does affect our mental health. Poverty definitely affects your mental health because, again, you're struggling to survive. And when you're in that constant mind frame of that I'm just waking up every day struggling to survive, then how are you really living? Like that's the question. Are you really living, or are you just living enough to make it each day? And that's why we often see like a lot of people who are homeless. You can ask them. I had the chance to ask a homeless person. They say I'm just waking up every day just to live. I'm hoping that I can get 50 cents to $1 or something just to scrounge up enough just so I can get me something to eat from the convenience store. a burrito or something. And so it to me, those components are very big on our mental health, and especially when it's continuous unemployment, continuous poverty. You know, think about our grandparents, right? Who had to rub a nickel together or rub a penny together to make 15 cents. And, you know, they're raising all their kids in this one bedroom apartment. You know, we got your hand-me-downs. You know, the kids
Yep.
are happy because they don't see exactly what grandma is doing to make sure that they don't feel poor. They know they're not well off, but for some reason, mama made sure that you had everything that you needed.
Right.
You don't know what she did to make sure that you needed, but you had it when she asked you for it, because somehow, she found a way. But she was struggling. She was struggling in poverty, or she was struggling at that minimum wage job to make sure that y'all were fed. But her mental health was suffering in that process. So that's how I look at it.
Yes to all of that. Yes.
I mean, there's also, and I mean, when we think about poverty, we know that living in poverty, it is traumatic, right? Poverty and trauma definitely go hand in hand. What I'm thinking too about is just how the environmental racism affects impoverished areas, right? So we're thinking about areas where you have the food insecurity or food scarcity, where you don't have access to, let alone regular grocery stores. I mean, some folks, their grocery store is 7-Eleven. And for those of you who are not in the States, that's like a gas station, convenience store.
Right.
That's where they get a lot of their nourishment, right? And we all know they're not selling the things that the mind, body, and soul really need to flourish, right? So fundamentally, even at that level, you're unable to really pour into your body. Also think about the access to healthcare centers and to mental health centers. So even, you know, when we just kind of zoom out and we look at, you know, impoverished areas, we don't see a lot of that, right? It's almost like access to healthcare is redlined, right? And so that's another component. Another piece I would say, I mean, we think about even today where AI data centers are being put in impoverished areas, which happen to be mostly Black and brown neighborhoods.
Yep.
And so these data centers are pumping off a lot of fumes and toxins into the environment, where our people, our community, are forced to breathe that in and live amongst that. So those are pieces that I think are also being missed in the conversation about how does poverty, right, affect our mental health, our physical health, which we know those two go hand in hand as well, very much so. And I know, you know, we're in an age of AI where everyone thinks it's so fun and cool, but I'll let people know that, like, even using ChatGPT or something like that, 120 words uses a full bottle of water. And so when we look at the use of how much water is being used, right, we think about the Flint, Michigan water crisis. Flint still doesn't have clean water. And we are using water for AI, you know, which is really impacting Black, brown neighborhoods / impoverished neighborhoods as well, which in turn is impacting our mental and our physical health.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I think
so true.
what you just said, Dr. Christie and Dr. Cloud, it's amazing how when you look at functional medicine, which is what I do, it ties in perfectly to what you say. I call the gut the manufacturing company, and there's a huge gut-brain relationship. So when you have someone that's going into depression or even hormonal imbalance and postpartum depression, like Dr. Cloud said, that person needs a whole lot of good microbiome to support their brain health. And where do you get that? From good, nutritious
Right.
foods, natural plants, whole grains, and those are the most expensive. So you already have someone that's dealing with poverty and feeling less than, especially a man that is supposed to provide, and now they can't provide, and that really impacts their soul, whether they say it or not. Every day they have to wake up, think about how to support and secure their family. And on top of that, they can afford the healthy nutrition to support their brain health. So it will create more double whammy for this person, and it will exacerbate even that mild depression now can turn into more severe depression, more chronic depression, more anxiety, just wondering, what am I going to do tomorrow? And the more depressed and anxious this person becomes, the less likelihood that they may be able to even function to the point of being able to produce for themselves to their best capacity or their full potential. So I think poverty is one thing, and cultural barriers, all these issues that we have to deal with on a daily basis. It's not easy, and it's very difficult, because when you look at, like she said, our neighborhoods, what do you find? You find convenience stores. What do we sell? You have the alcohol, you have the cigarettes, you have the processed foods that are the most available to our families. But then on the other hand, it is not going to support our mental health. So the gut-brain relationship is one big thing that we tend to forget, and is part of the biggest problem for mental health. Yeah.
Mhm. Can I add to Dr. J? You just brought up such a really good
Please.
point. And, again, thinking about, from what I see with young people in the school system, those who have not had breakfast, those who have not had a nutritional breakfast are the ones that are either falling asleep at the table, or if they've had something high in sugar, they're bouncing off the walls. And so whatever it is, they're unable to receive instruction. And so over time, so many days of them not receiving instruction because of how they showed up to school, right? What they were filled with. Also, not only does it affect their academic stream, their academic tenure, but it does affect their mental health, because we know kids who are not doing very well in school, the academic struggles are comorbid with the mental struggles, the mental health struggles, right? And so then we see, I don't like school, this is too hard for me, et cetera, et cetera. And these things lead to dropout, or these things lead to engaging in activities that are, I'm going to say, maladaptive. Even look, so there's a long-term impact of these things that we're talking about that we really, really cannot ignore. And I think so often, and I know even caregivers and parents try their best, but I think this piece of information is really, really, it's imperative for them to understand, because they get the complaints from the teacher, but they're not seeing, okay, if I'm not sending my kid to school in this way, if they're not ready to learn, I also play a role in that. And again, we know that a lot of things are out of control, but I think that helps with the parenting dynamic and the empathy that they can extend to their child.
It really does. And what I'm hearing everyone saying is it's all a domino effect. When one thing falls down, multiple things fall down. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about the poverty, we're talking about equality, we're talking about all these things happening in our environment, in our atmosphere, which impacts us mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and all these things. And I love that you brought up the piece about school, right? Because that's why more of us need to be in those spaces, because we can help people gain that understanding, especially parents, right? If someone is saying, oh, I hate school, I don't like school, we usually just punish them. It's punitive. Now you can play this, you've taken this, I'm taking away that, you can't be on your phone. Instead of investigating, well, why don't you? Well, I don't understand something, or I'm hungry, or my brain is foggy, and all these things that occur, we need to take the time to really assess. I was a school counselor in high school, and the amount of students who are like, my parents aren't hearing me or listening to me, and the amount of conversations that have to be had about this is going on in our communities. It's really important that we have that conversation. When one thing falls, multiple things fall. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing. I'm going to combine a couple of questions because they're similar. So the two I'm going to combine is like, what needs to change in the mental health system? And why does it need to change? Because it's harmful. Like, what harmful beliefs need to change in the mental health system, or how people see mental health, so that we can progress forward, right? We're talking about healing our minds and empowering our communities. So what are some things in the mental health field, system, kind of multiverse that we see need to change that cause those harmful beliefs in our community?
Mhm. Mhm.
I think the first thing would be perception.
Mm,
The perception that we have about mental health and what it
mm,
means. And that would need a whole bunch of education, just like what you're doing right now or what we're
mm,
doing right now. Because
right.
if the perception is totally different than what we are, we should see it as a disease, not being
Mm,
stigmatized as a problem. It's a disease. It's
mm,
not just something that someone can call. It's just like high blood pressure, diabetes, a heart disease, whatever disease it is. And those diseases need support. And people should feel comfortable speaking about it and not be stigmatized as a crazy person or someone that is less than. I think when the perception is different, that helps a lot.
Mhm.
agreed. Agreed.
I think when we're talking about this, we also have to have transparency, and I think that's another issue
Mm-hmm.
that we don't have when it comes to mental health. We're not transparent with our people. Let me caveat this. We're not transparent about the real risk of letting mental health go undiagnosed and untreated. And I think that when we,
Mm,
especially in the American community, we often, when we talk to people and we talk about, well, you need to go see a therapist, you may be having a mental health issue and stuff like that. I don't think we really deep dive into the transparency of what would happen if they don't have that diagnosed, if they're not on the proper medications, if they're not getting that treated. And the reason I say this because then we start seeing manic episodes. We start seeing, like Dr. J said, that severe depression. We start seeing that alienation of affection, and we start seeing all these other little bits and pieces that is coming from the lack of transparency, and people are wondering what's wrong with them. When the whole time
yeah.
nobody took the time to kind of be with to tell them, let me be transparent. Here is exactly what you're looking at happening if you don't get this addressed now. And I think that
Mm,
is one of the, and that goes back into barriers too, but it also goes into this area of, we do lack transparency, especially in the Black community, because mental health has always been a taboo topic for some odd reason. In the Black community, we treat it as if it's this curse word. You can't, and like Dr. J said earlier, depending on the diaspora, your upbringing, talking about mental health in an African American family is like cussing at your grandma saying the word lie. It's on that list of words we don't say. You know, I'm
yeah.
sure I'm sure you probably heard your parents, well, you better go mental health them dishes. It's we lack that transparency because we just feel like that it's not something that we need to talk about. We make it a taboo topic.
Mhm. Yeah, I think those are really good points. And I will say, I'm really grateful to have witnessed there's been a shift. I think we have started to
Yeah.
be more accepting, and talk more about the impact of mental health and mental wellness on the Black community. I think one thing that we can also do is really connect, the reality is, there are some mental illnesses and disorders that, are hereditary. They're not necessarily stemming from environmental interactions, et cetera, right? And there are a lot of mental disorders that, when you zoom out, we're having normal reactions to a very sick system. And so that doesn't mean that we don't need support. But I think it helps with the normalization of, hey, you're struggling, right? And this is not how we're supposed to be living. When you really think about ancestrally, again, we don't have access to really healthy food. We don't have access to community like we used to. Everyone is really just trying to survive. And that is not how we are supposed to be living. And so, yes, you do have depression, you do have anxiety, and it is a normal reaction to a very, very, very sick, nasty system. I mean, you open up social media,
Yes.
you see people. I mean, I've opened up social media and I've seen babies with their head blown off because I keep in contact with civil rights and human rights activists globally. So this is traumatic. So this doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that I'm wired weird, but this is a normal reaction to seeing what is happening in the world. When I see that people are mining in the Congo and falling into the mines for pennies on the dollar so I can have an iPhone, I have a dissonance, right? Because I'm a human. Like I struggle with those things. And so not to say everyone is struggling with the same thing, but the reality is we are witnessing things that are very unhealthy. We are living very unhealthy lifestyles, and they do have a great impact on our mental health. And so I think connecting those two things helps really break down some of the stigma, because again, we're not supposed to be living like this, and that doesn't mean that you don't need support to navigate these challenges that you are experiencing.
No, so true, and thank you all for that. I wanted to do a reset really quick, just for anyone who has joined. Thank you for joining Black Mental Health Matters. We are talking about healing our mind and empowering our community. I also want to say to the panel, my Wi-Fi might be acting up a little bit, so if I happen to go out, please continue on with the questions. The show must go on, so please just continue on amongst yourselves. I just want to make sure to put that in there too, just in case you see me drop out or pause or I freeze or anything. Please continue on. I want to continue on while I still can. We talked about the barriers. We talked about some of the things people experience with accessing mental health, or how we see it, eradicating that stigma. From your professional and personal opinions, how do you feel that, no, I wouldn't say we as a community, we as the professionals in the community, right? Because a lot of the onus does come on us. We've gone to school, we have the understanding. How do we seek mental help or accessing mental help less foreign and less intimidating? Like, what are some of the things that you've done, in your practice, in the school, in the clinic, wherever? What are some of the things that you've done, and how do we do that more so people know this isn't some big bad thing that we have to be afraid of? It's accessible to all.
So I would say for me, since a lot of my background or my research is geared towards Black men, only because we are the ones who don't really seek mental health services. I try to make an affirming space. I try to have open and honest conversation with other men of color about the benefits and the cons of seeking mental health services as well. Professionally and personally, I will share with them. I always tell people, when we talk about disclosure, we always talk with especially with our clients. I disclose I've been in therapy before, and people are like, well, you're a therapist, and every therapist has a therapist. I've always said that every therapist has a therapist, and I've been through therapy before as well, because I recognized that there was something within myself that I needed to address, and I can't self-diagnose myself, so I needed another person. And I always tell those Black men in my community that it's only scary because we were told for so long that we had to be strong, that we weren't allowed to seek safe spaces, that we weren't allowed to be vulnerable or to be soft. And it took me years, and when I tell my clients this, I tell them all the time, it took me years to get to a point where I'm able to fully express and verbally express my wants, my needs, and my boundaries, because so long I felt that as a man, I wasn't allowed the opportunity. So I will always just say yes, or I will always just keep my emotions bottled up until they kind of just exploded out of me. And so that's how I make it more accessible, because when you have that same relatability with each other, you're kind of able to also have that safe affirming space with each other as well, and also guide them in the right directions. And I always try to guide Black men and other people of color in the right direction for mental health services, because I'm quick to tell them I've been in your shoes before. I may not be in the same predicament that you were, but I've been in your same shoes of not knowing what to do when I'm experiencing something this severe in my life. And therapy was that one caveat that actually helped me a lot.
Yeah, I think that's so key. I want to take a moment just to say, thank you, as a Black man in the field, for encouraging other Black men to do that. In light of all we've seen, it is going to take Black men holding other Black men accountable. It's just the reality of it, right? And showing that there is help out here, that support, and you do not lose 1 ounce of masculinity for going to talk to someone, for going to speak to someone. You do not lose 1 bit of testosterone. A man, okay? You are still just as much of a man as you want to be if you go speak to someone. And in all seriousness, that's what's seen. That's where the true strength is shown. that you
Yeah.
are taking care of yourself, because when you're your best, you can take care of your family, you can take care, just in general, overall. So I just wanted to point that out and say thank you, because seeing Black men in mental wealth spaces, it's coming up, but we want to see it a lot more, because everybody needs this assistance and help. And I feel like our communities will be stronger because of that. So I wanted to take a small moment to do a little toot toot and say thank you for being in this space, especially as a Black man in this space.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. Definitely, because we need more men out there like you that are doing the work. Because I can see the difference when they come in, they have to almost loosen up first before they would even be able to open up to me. Um, Usually, what I do after a conversation with a client or with a patient, I always ask, "How is your mental health?" And when I ask that, they always look back like, "What do you mean?" I say, "Well, life be life, and sometimes just let me know what's going on." And then the person will open up. So that's what I let them know, that even myself, I have issues, and then I need people to talk to about it. So just because I'm sitting here being your doctor doesn't mean that I am not human. So
Yeah.
if I have issues, you most likely may have some issues. That's why I'm asking, how is your mental health? And I learned that from a mentor years ago, that if you ask someone how you doing, it's quick for people to say, I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine, because
Mhm.
it's the acceptable word in society to say, I'm okay, I'm fine. Are you really okay, or you just okay? So
Okay.
that's when I started saying, okay, instead of saying, how are you, is how is your mental health? And then it makes the person joke if that's the first time they're hearing it. And they were like, my mental health. I say, yeah. Anything going on? How is the spouse? Are they driving you crazy? Are they my age where they're
Mm.
going through menopause and having some issues? And then the person will come up. But I think that has been more helpful for me to get people to open up, to the point where they will end up saying, you sound like you're my therapist now. I said, well, I'm not just treating your symptoms. We're here, the mind, the body, the soul. If it's
Mhm.
church you want to go, if you want to go to the mosque, we can talk about all of those things, because that's what makes us who we are as a person and as a society. So I think that has been helpful for most of the people that I encounter. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. I think I will just add, earlier I talked about just normalizing the experience, or normalizing the fact that, a lot of times our reactions to the environment are normal reactions, but, they come with symptoms, right? Because we're reacting to a sick environment. I think I would also, really just add that sometimes a lot of the stigma comes around treatment as well. And so my research has been in racial trauma for Black youth. And there's evidence that a lot of and not just for Black youth, but just for Black people, a lot of the treatments are not just grounded in necessarily sort of these different therapeutic frameworks or medication, which are also tools in your toolbox, but also there's evidence that being in community with one another is important. Reading is important, and just being able to read fiction, right? Just taking a break from your reality is important. Being taught some of those grounding techniques. So when's the last time you stepped outside? When's the last time you stepped outside and put your feet in grass, right? So connecting with the earth is really important. And I've also, like, I see a naturopath, and there's some herbal remedies, herbal traditional medicines that can help support with mental health. If you're not really like, I don't want to take any modern medicine, I don't want to take any pills, fine, right? And then and so there's other alternatives too, right? That can also support that. And then spirituality and mental health and treatment don't have to be exclusive, right? So sometimes you can find a faith-based therapist that aligns with your belief system. And if you necessarily are not religious, you can find a therapist that will help with maybe you are more of a spiritual person who believes in the connectedness of the earth and all of these various things, right? And so there are people out here that can support you in your value system. Two more things. Lastly, or second to last, is that psychoeducation piece where I think a lot of times we'll be like, what are you feeling? And people will give you a thought. And so even just being able to delineate the difference between feelings and thoughts for adults, for children, for anyone, like that's at a fundamental level. Like, what are feelings? Where do they show up in our body? Are they in our stomach? Are they in our throat? Where do our hands feel hot when we feel anger? Just giving some of that psychoeducation is really, really important. And lastly, mutual aid, because too often we're relying on bigger systems to fund our work, but we really need to invest in grassroots systems to fund our work so that when we have a different president or when we have a different dictator, things are not snatched from us, but our work can continue. So maybe that looks like everybody's putting in $2, $3, whatever. But that's how we sustain our work, and that's how we can make sure that no one can just really come in and take it from us.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. And you actually made a good segue, into talking about how culture, spirituality, and our tradition influence how we deal with not just trauma, but how we see our need for mental health, or how we see the path to getting access. So I wanted to give Dr. Cloud and Dr. J an opportunity to also weigh in on that, because you mentioned the herbal and the kind of homeopathic ways, but how does that spirituality, like if you're in the church, most people are just like, oh, Jesus is the way, and he is, if that's what you're saying, but also you can also see a therapist. So how are we seeing how tradition, spirituality, and our cultural things also have a big weigh in on how we see the world of mental health?
I would say, go ahead, Dr. J.
Go ahead, Dr. Cloud.
No, go ahead, because mine's gonna be controversial. So go ahead, Dr. J. I'll wait.
All right. So I just smiled when she said you can use herbs and stuff, which is what I do. And when you're in healthcare, you're not supposed to just think about the conventional way of doing things, because you're going to encounter a whole bunch of different angles, different spirituality, different beliefs, and you should be able to incorporate. It's not what you read from the textbook. You have a patient that comes in, or a client that's very specific. Their norms are different. Their beliefs are different. You should be able to listen to them and see where they're coming from and go to them from where they are and work with them. Because if the person believes in, like, let's say, for example, an African client that comes in that believes in the church system or believe in some kind of a miracle prayer services, yes, what are your beliefs? What have you done with your beliefs? How do you use your beliefs and incorporate in that and say, okay, well, that's a great thing, because you have to have something bigger than you to lean onto that gives you the support and the hope to move on rather than a pill. Well, yes, we can still have you pray. You can still have your church man or whoever it is, the spiritual person, to talk to you, to connect with you, to help you believe that there's something better that out there, at least give you the support. It's almost like a therapist, because if you look at it, when our ancestors, they have the community, they have the church system. When colonialism came over, they took that away, but they did not replace that with something else. So for us to really help our Black communities is allowing them to bring back that culture that they know, the closeness, the family, the support system from the community, whether it's grandma, whether it's the church, whoever it is that's doing the storytelling, to allow you to express your emotions without really telling you you're mentally challenged, because that's what grandma used to do. We'll talk to you, give you stories, give you the wolf, the lion in African culture. That's what they do, to allow you to express without really looking down on you. So I have to, again, understand that this person is different, is coming from a different angle. It doesn't mean that they are wrong. It just means that they have a different background. They have a different belief. just like if they come in and don't believe in taking pills, I should not say, well, you don't want to take this Lexapro, you're discharged. I don't want to deal with you. No. What do you think would work for you instead of the Lexapro? What do you think would work
Nice.
for you instead of the Zoloft? And then the person said, well, I believe in herbs. I believe in this. I said, okay, well, these are the herbs that kind of mimic this. If you're wanting more functional type or holistic type, how about incorporating lifestyle modification plus these things? And let me see you back in a month and see where you at. Let's get a
Nice.
therapist involved. Let's get someone in your community that you believe in, the church, the pastor, whoever it is that can really communicate with you to help you open up to express yourself so you would not feel any less than. And I think that's really crucial when, especially from us healthcare providers, we are the ones that need to really change the way we think, our mindset about the people that we deal with, than people having to change themselves because they need the support. They're vulnerable, and we need to be there for them all throughout. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this question is tricky for me. The only reason why is because I've always believed that spirituality is a great asset for those of us who have a faith system, but I also believe that it's a double-edged sword too sometimes. And the reason why I say it's probably gonna be a little controversial is because I think sometimes we weaponize our the faith system towards people's mental health. We are sometimes we say, and I think this is more so the older generation than it is the newer generation. And this is kind of what Dr. Els was saying earlier, that we're starting to see this shift in how we are looking at and perceiving mental health. Because when we look at the older generation, a lot of times when people are going through mental health issues, they will say, go to the church, pray about it. God gonna heal it all. You just need to go. You just need to lay your burdens down, sleep on it, and give it to God. We weren't addressing the issue, the mental health issue. We were just passing it off to the church, right? And then we were sending our people to the church to deal with people who were not qualified to deal with mental health, right? We were saying, go to the pastor. The pastor gonna read you a scripture out the Bible. It depends on your faith belief, and he gonna say, use this scripture and let this lead your life, and God's gonna heal what you're going through. That's what we gave you. That's what we said. That was how we were dealing with your mental health episode. Or my favorite is, you will go to the church and the pastor and them say, she's just a little touch, but God gonna work it out for her. She actually has autism, but the church was saying no, she's just a little touch. God gonna heal her from it. We weren't addressing the autism because we didn't want to name it. We didn't want to name it. We didn't want to claim what it was because it was taboo again in the older generation. I think now what the shift is that we are seeing that our generation, Gen Z and the generation millennials and our parents' generation, not our grandparents, but our parents' generation, we are starting to now combine our spirituality and our faith-based systems with mental health treatment. Faith-based therapy. We're starting to see more of that, and that people are now utilizing their faith alongside their mental health services, and it gives them a comprehensive type of therapeutic approach. We're not just sending them to the church, or we're not just sending them to the root doctor, whatever they believe their faith-based system is, saying this is what you need to do. We're also now starting to use the research, the theoretical knowledge, that many of us were kind of trained in alongside our faith to give this comprehensive therapeutic approach now. And that's why I said it might be a little controversial, because in the older generation, they still do not want to talk about their mental health. Some of them do not. Some of them still just utilize the church and I just go talk to my pastor about it. Your pastor ain't trained in how to treat your suicide ideations.
Not.
He's not trained in how to treat your bipolar disorder, your manic episodes, your anxiety, your depression, whether it's mild, moderate, or severe. He's not trained in how to treat any of this. What he's going to give you is he's going to give you a quote from the Bible. He said, let's turn to John 3:16. Let's pray about this together and pray that these demons will come out of you and it won't affect you and your mental health. Ma'am, you were supposed to be on pills. Ma'am, it's not to say that rudely, ma'am, you're supposed to be on Lexapro. Okay? You're supposed to be on Ritalin, Adderall, whatever it is to deal with whatever disorder that you have. He doesn't know that because the only thing that he has is his faith to lean on. He doesn't have the therapeutic background. But you want to use a church versus using a therapist. That's why I say when we look at it across the generational, we start to see that shift. That's just
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I think
it's so true.
it's trying to let people understand that it's not isolated. Like it's not a isolated
Mm.
treatment. You can't just say go see the church and go see the pastor or go see grandma, but it's accepting that what you believe is not wrong, because then the reason why you don't want to let people think that their beliefs are wrong, because then you're pushing them away. Then they think that you are not accepting who they are. You got to accept the person from where they are so you can allow them to come into you, to even listen to you. Once you get their trust, that they believe you trust their beliefs. However, this is something that's deeper than just going to the church. This is something deeper than just going to grammar. This is something more. We still need your clinical person. That's why you need to still continue to go to the church, go do everything that you want to do. However, let's incorporate these things into your beliefs to get a better solution, because back then and now are totally different. Back then, you may not have the access to those care, but now you have both. Why don't we use both so you're better? The more, the merrier. And I think from that angle, it would help a lot of people, especially older generation, like my generation or my parents' generation, for them to really believe and agree with the current treatment than just saying, hey, this is what it is. You have to do this or else that's it. I think that's what we may have to look at, how we can incorporate what they believe in, but then add what we have now to make them make people a better person. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can
Yeah.
have, because I always tell people, you can have God and a therapist. It's not one or the other. You can have
Nope.
both. Or if you believe in Buddha, who whatever your faith-based system is, you can have that in a therapist. It's not one or the other. It's not gonna shun you for choosing to have both. That's just what it is. But people who are so indoctrinated or rooted deep into their faith-based system, sometimes they believe that they only need one, and they're going to choose the higher power versus a qualified mental professional. And I've seen it in practice.
And your answer should always be, for those people that say that, is that, God doesn't come down. He sends the knowledge and the wisdom to the people. And those knowledge and wisdom
That's right.
are the professionals, because he doesn't come down to talk to you. He goes through these Dr. Cloud or Dr. Christie and give them the knowledge and the wisdom and the education for them to be able to represent him on here. So I think when people understand that, instead of saying, oh, I have to go to the church or I have to go to this person, it's because they think that is all they know. Until we expose them to other things, I think that would help. Yeah. But you're perfectly right about that, Dr.
Yeah.
Cloud.
Yeah. The old Baptist saying, he don't call the qualified, he called the unqualified. We qualified, but the old Baptist said that's so that's how I look at it.
It's so true. It's so true. Thank you all for sharing that. I want to take a moment. We are almost at an hour, so we're going to be landing this plane soon. Believe it or not, we've already been talking for an hour. Like it went by so quick. I want to say something really quick, though. This is for all the viewers. You'll see in your upper left-hand corner, there's a donate button. Go ahead and take out your phone. Go ahead and take out your tablet and go ahead and scan that and donate to Black Mental Health Matters. We want to keep these conversations going, want to keep this flowing. And I want to give the panelists, as we begin to, this is our descent, like, when you're on a plane and now we're entering into our airspace and this is our descent. I want to give the space of the panel a chance to explain in your field and what you have been doing, how and what does empowering our community look like in action for you? What does that look like? And then, so wrap it up in like your final thoughts to our viewing audience. What does empowering our community? We have talked about our barriers areas. We talked about how we turn the tide, rid of that stigma and what we need to do, practical things. How and what does empowering look for you? Also, let the people know where they can reach you, okay? Some people might want to continue this conversation, right? They might want to or to just, talk to you and things like that. We want to give people access. So please, when you're wrapping up and giving your final closing thoughts, please let people know how they can reach you, so we can go ahead and land this plane and let you get on with the rest of your day.
So I wrap up. I can do my wrap up. So I would say when it comes to
Okay.
empowering our communities, we have to meet people where they are. That has always been my biggest thing, is meeting people where they are and getting them to where they need to be. Because where you started is not where you're going to end it, but I'm going to meet you where you're at. So if you're in the street, if you are in the jail, if you're in the church, my goal is to meet you where you are and to encourage you to utilize all resources available to you. And it may not be, we may not have therapy inside the office. We might have therapy at the park. We might have therapy in your car. It's meeting you where you are your most safe and your most comfortable at, to give you the tools that to get able to move you to your next destination. And to me, that empowers our kids better, because it's showing that we're not afraid to come to your house. I don't care if you got roaches. Listen, I used to work in CPS. I don't see roaches. I don't been lit by a kid before. I have been attacked by a ferret. I promise you, nothing that you are going through. Nothing that you are going through, it really will surprise me. But me being willing to meet you where you are, regardless of your predicament, I think speaks highly as a clinician, and that I see you as a person, not as your circumstances, but as a person. And I'm trying to get you from where you are now to where you need to be, as you continue to grow. In the long term of things, is that we have to keep pushing for transparency. And I said this earlier, we have to keep pushing for transparency in mental health services in our communities. We have to keep pushing for Black men to seek therapeutic services as well. But we also have to, as clinicians, and this is just my personal caveat, is that we also have to continue to do the inner works to make sure that we are showing up as our authentic selves to help the people that we are trying to help. Because if we are not fully aware of our own shortcomings or our own behaviors, then how are we able to help the people that we're trying to serve? And that's my spiel.
Love it. Love it. Now, did you let people know where they can reach you, how they can reach you?
Oh, yes. So you can reach me at my own business page, which is Black Men Need Love Too. We're definitely on Instagram. You are more than welcome to reach out to me there. I'm quick to respond back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, that's great. What I would like to say is that, like he said, for me, being a provider, I'm in the forefront. So it's very crucial that I screen and send them out to Dr. Cloud or Dr. Christie, because I'm the trust that they see every day. The primary care provider is one of the forefronts of healthcare. And I think the more we are engaged in asking our community how they're doing with their mental health and screening them and making them believe that this is not supposed to be a crazy diagnosis, like we always say in the community, and making it more acceptable, changing the perspective, I think we can definitely empower more of our community to seek the help that they need, send them to counselors, send them to therapists, send them to psychiatrists, making them understand this is normal, just like I will send you to a cardiologist or to a neurologist or to a nephrologist. It's exactly the same way. It has nothing else different. And I think that would be able to empower a lot more people doing that. And I'm hoping and praying that more providers would be willing to do the same thing, take the time. I know it's difficult because we want to run primary care like a fast food service, but it can't be that. We have to take the time to be able to learn and know the patients that we deal with every day. And that's what I wanted to say. But if anyone wants to reach me, I'm currently at Forum Functional Health in McKinney right now. If you're more interested in functional medicine, which we can see patients via televisits from all over the US or even Africa, Asia, wherever. I have patients all over. And I also have a primary care clinic in Garland, which is just a regular PCP. It's Texans Health and Wellness Center. If anyone wants to reach me out there, I'm open to take new patients and always willing to help. Thank you.
Fantastic.
All right, so I'll wrap up. I know we're a bit over time. I think, just my approach is really just how can we instill those ancestral values to get back to really where we came from, in my therapeutic approach, obviously in conjunction with all of the new things that we read, the herbal medicines, being in community, et cetera, et cetera. And so one way that I am helping empower the community is I co-founded the Black School Psychologists Network, where our mission is to support, elevate, and uplift the work of Black psychologists. So that's also where you can find me. You can go to our website, which is www.bspninc.com, and you can email me. My email is listed on the website. So thank you so much.
Awesome panel. Thank you so much for your insight, for your gems that you dropped. People have truly been helped. And we really want to just help to empower our communities. They've been given practice, they've been given how to reach you, so that we are taking away excuses for people saying, I don't have help and I don't know where to go. Thank you again. And thank you, audience, for those who are listening live and those who will listen on the replay. You have been tuned in to another episode of Black Mental Health Matters. We will see you on the next episode. Continue to be well. Peace.